Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jack Fitzgerald. I am the current ETA graduate president at the Weatherhead School of Management. I'm also a part-time MBA student. It's been my privilege to help lead this club over the last several months, really the last 2 years. 3 years ago, I pitched actually with Kevin LaJudas here, who's now our alumni advisor. Kevin and I lost to a high school team. So we've been telling that to the students pretty much every week to give them courage and make light of it. But really, the club is a special place. It's open to all undergrad and graduate students and alumni. It is a student-led club, but it's supported by ETA faculty and entrepreneurs and residents, meant to expose students to ETA, the Northeast Ohio ETA ecosystem. Coursework, we have courses here that you may have heard about, and a certificate program, and then pitching, of course, which has been in existence now for a few years, thanks to Jack Rayfroth and Tyler Fond, who started this a few years ago. I think I saw them, I see Tyler. So thanks to them. And thanks to our advisors. Again, I mentioned Kevin LaJudas on the alumni side, supporting the club, and then Jackie Sanders and Scott Lowry. I want to briefly introduce our judges today. So we have 3 great judges from industry. We have GJ King, a partner at BK Growth. We have Kylie Smith, who is an SVP at CF Bank. And then our ETA Student Futures sponsor, Michael Ellis, who's a partner with Buckingham, Doolittle, and Burroughs. So thank you so much to our judges for volunteering. And I was told by many that they wouldn't like this. They don't like the spotlight, but that's our coaches for you. Kevin Shaw and Joyce Shaw, who are hiding in the front here. They have been, let's give them a round of applause. I think every student here would tell you, Kevin and Joyce have probably worked with close to 100 students over the last few years with this project. And it's really been my privilege to watch them do it. And I think the students said in a card to Kevin and Joyce that we learned a lot about identifying a great industry, but we also learned what an excellent coach looked like. So thank you. Thank you to our coaches, Kevin and Joyce. So a little bit of background, and I think it's important grounding for you before we launch into the pitches today. But what you're about to see is the product of several weeks worth of work. So Aaron Drasnin, our undergraduate president, Aaron's here in the third row, could not have done this without him. We recruited at the beginning of the school year students who weren't busy enough, right? They were acclimating to college. They were getting pitches from many clubs to join. They were doing their coursework, at least most of them. And we said, hey, we want you to be a part of a several-week effort where you're going to learn how to identify a great business in a great industry. And the deal was that they had to work with us for 7 consecutive Wednesdays. So this was at least an hour of their time every Wednesday where they were working with Kevin and Joyce to really refine their pitches. So you're going to be seeing a product that ultimately is several weeks worth of work and refinement. So we have 3 teams today competing. The format will be 5 minutes for a pitch, 3-minute Q&A from the judges. The voting is twofold, so our judges have criteria in front of them. That will be weighted at 75%, and then you as the audience, you'll get to vote through a great tool called Mentimeter. That's going to work, Scott. It's going to work this year. That is 25% of the vote. So Kevin, our fearless alumni advisor, is going to tally those scores for us, and then we'll present the winning teams at the end. So first, second, third place. The tiebreaker will go to ETA alignment and feasibility. So again, a final note, just really want to congratulate our teams today. We have 2 undergraduate teams pitching and 1 graduate team. So it's really fantastic efforts by them. And with that, I'll bring up our first team to pitch, Team Axia.
Mihailo, how's the school going?
Pretty good, Ben.
Ready for the flu shot?
Yes, sir.
Ouch! This is what happens when medical waste isn't disposed of properly. Hospitals all around the US produce tons and tons of medical waste. And in Cleveland alone, that number is over 30,000. And all this waste needs to be disposed of somehow, right? That is why today we present a great opportunity, medical waste management.
So, medical waste management is a $2 billion market that is growing at a rate of 5 to 6% every year with EBITDA margins of 20 to 30%. In the US, there are 684 companies doing medical waste management, of which 80% have below 50 employees, and the majority of which have owners that are 60 to 70 years old. And with aging ownership comes a lot of potential upside. So how will we actually do this? Currently, a lot of the companies for navigation only use a paper list of addresses in Google Maps. That is highly inefficient. We could create a software of our own to do that. And then they also write everything on paper in terms of manifest, which is a required by law document of where the trash is going. We could make that digital, which is already required by law in California and New York, so we could be ahead of the curve in Ohio. A lot of manual invoices are going on. We could turn that into auto billing. Then we could also add a lot of services in addition, such as OSHA training of hospital employees.
So, you may be wondering, is this industry recession? Well, first of all, we're supported by the government. It is mandated by law. Secondly, we have long-term clients, and the churn rate is low. And third, it is in constant demand. And also, it is an increasing demand.
So now let's have a look at how the market is behaving and how our opportunities are shaping. For example, the threat of new entrants is low. This because the initial cost for equipment and facilities is high. In addition, we have to comply with heavy regulations. So that gives us an advantage. Then we have the threat of substitutes, which is also low. Waste is happening, and we need to comply and dispose it correctly. After that, we have the power of suppliers. This is low. If I need a new truck, I can go to different companies. So there's no issue there. Going to the power of buyers, this is moderate. Our clients, they do have power. If they don't like something, they will tell us. But we are confident on comply with that and have good relationships. Finally, the industry rivalry is moderate. There are some players that are already established. Nevertheless, we think that solving those inefficiencies we already mentioned, we can have some opportunity. Now, let's say we go in, we do the work right. We have some exit strategies we would like to present. The first one is hold for cash flow. Then we can sell to private equity. Or why not sell to strategic? With this, I mean larger waste firms. All these are supported by data that we have seen recently, where local players have acquired smaller businesses.
Yeah, so firms are spending billions of dollars and have been for the last few years and decades in related fields and in medical waste, especially. Waste Management itself bought a firm in 2024 for $77.7 billion, and Aurora Capital spent $170 million. That's 3.4 times the revenue of a firm. Now, why is this actually perfect for ETA? So it's a high margin and essential service. There's hundreds of small companies, meaning less than $10 million in value, ready to be bought, meaning that we could buy many of those businesses, make a bigger company out of them, and hence increase route density, therefore increasing the margins automatically. With better margins comes a better price for when we want to sell the company. So Investors, I do not want you to miss out on this wonderful opportunity. So please join us in this wonderful trash venture. Yes.
So if our judges have any questions.
Yes. I mean, obviously, when you're talking about Rumpke or WM, you're talking about them buying the larger companies after the consolidation has occurred. How do you get to your first vehicle? And then when do you see your second or third? Because you're not going to start at the 7 billion level. You're starting buying one of the 100s, okay, with maybe 2 million in sales. So how do you perceive yourself starting at that point and then growth from there?
All right. Well, excellent question. Thank you very much. So we would buy a small firm that is kind of inefficient, so it will be able to be bought at kind of a low price. And then we would increase the profitability through the things that I mentioned, such as adding more services, increasing the efficiency of just routes in general. But I want to focus a little bit on the additional services, since I think that is very interesting. We could sell OSHA training to hospital employees, since they are required to do that with their employees. They need to train them for the regulations, and we know all of the regulations since we are in the field. We could also do shredding of papers, since hospitals produce a lot of documents that need to get rid of them safely, as is required by regulations, so that clients have their privacy in the hospital. And additionally, we could sell to small firms such as local dentist offices. These would be like boxes that are also required by law. So just since they don't produce as much trash, they don't need a lot of big garbage dumps. They just need a little box, and they need to keep buying them. But the thing with that is we do not need to go in with a truck every week like we do with a hospital or every day, whatever. We just sell them the product, which is just a box that is required by law. And then they just ship it with UPS, USPS to a local trash disposer. And then we would grow the company.
I know I'm supposed to ask a question, but I'm not. I'm going to just say the presentation was phenomenal. You could really follow on the methodology of what I reviewed 5 times. They're supposed to hit today. I thought each of you really had confidence and know it. You're not just regurgitating. I think you comprehend what you're saying. And the fact that you can do like add-on markets is amazing. So I feel like some of the entrepreneurs in this, if this is all true, might be going on and buying one of these. So nice job.
Thank you so much.
Okay. We hit 3. All right, thanks, guys. Let's give him a round of applause. Yeah. All right, we'll have our next team come up, Rolling Spartans. Test. Does that work? Yep. Okay.
First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for being here today. I know we're just students and y'all have other workshops to do, but I appreciate y'all coming here to listen to us. It's a fantastic opportunity for our presentation skills. And thank you for the ETA Club for presenting this opportunity for the students. We appreciate it. So, hello everyone. Thank you for coming here today. Hope y'all are doing well. We are the Rolling Spartans, and we're diving deep into the medical calibration industry. But before that, I'd like to tell a little story. Over here, we have our friend Alex. great guy. He had an appendectomy in high school. And as we know, it's a very straightforward procedure. However, with the smallest incorrect calibration, he wouldn't be here today. What we thought would be a very simple and straightforward procedure could very quickly turn into a nightmare. A nightmare of lawsuits, death, and our great friend Alex not being able to deliver this fantastic presentation. This is an anesthesia machine used for procedures such as an appendectomy. It needs to be calibrated by a technician with the necessary expertise using this equipment. What Alex experienced is an example of procedure that occurs daily. We would love to introduce you to the third-party medical calibration industry, which is not limited to anesthesia. With a combination of services of technicians, equipment, and safety, we want to keep you and your family and Alex alive, healthy, and safe. And now time for that deep dive.
All right, so we conducted an industry analysis and we found that the market size is roughly $1.5 billion, expected to reach almost $2.5 billion by 2032. Meanwhile, there are already between 400 and 600 companies making from $5 to $20 million in annual sales. So the market is highly fragmented, and that's ideal for consolidation strategies as well. These companies would already have the equipment that technicians need, so all we would have to do is provide the service and occasional maintenance. So, will this industry endure? Yes. It has an excellent customer retention because sticking with the same proven vendor allows hospitals to avoid massive liability issues associated with incorrectly calibrated devices. Additionally, legal compliance standards require most devices to be calibrated every 12 to 24 months, so the demand for our service will always be there.
These compliance and regulation issues makes the barrier to entry for opponents high and threat of entry low, since these regulations require at least 2 to 5 years to get accreditation. In addition, for each technician, it can cost up to 6 figures or $100,000 just to have one technician. For a $5 to $20 million industry, per revenue, that's a lot. In addition, that also makes substitutes and rivals, due to said regulations, all have to find the same playing field, making consolidation and acquisition much easier.
Our main customers are the hospitals and the clinics. They can't really defer calibrations because the FDA requires it for patient safety. Also, it's not very easy for them to switch provider due to power documentation and also the relationship that would build with them. In terms of the supplier power, we have a lot of options. There are so many calibration equipment manufacturers that are competing for our business, from Fluke to Keysight. Therefore, there's no single dominant supplier that can really control our equipment costs.
Now, why is our team so enthusiastic about this industry? The reason for that is this is a niche hidden in plain sight. As we all know, AI and big tech can take over and disrupt a lot of industries. However, this is not one that can be easily disrupted. As we've been telling you, there is non-negotiable demand, since we've been telling you that there is 12 to 24 months of necessary recalibration required by federal law. So what we're telling you here is that the government is giving us a subscription business-based model that we're here to meet.
So, what now? Well, I'll tell you what. So, as Asmin mentioned, the government is giving us a recurring revenue model. It's given. It cannot get any better than that. Additionally, as Alex mentioned, there's a 2 to 5 year accreditation period, thus keeping low threats to entry, keeping the competition at bay from entering the industry. And we have a home turf advantage in Cleveland with UH, Cleveland Clinic, Metro Health, and the VA on campus, near campus, not to mention other smaller medical facilities in the greater Cleveland area. And with an increase in the aging population in the US, there's an increased need for the medical devices, thus a need for our medical calibration services. So we want to continue analyzing the competitive dynamics within the industry, identify further certification requirements, and to explore remote calibration and predictive maintenance. So please join us in keeping you and your family alive, healthy, and safe. Thank you. We'll be taking questions. Alex, you're up.
Yeah.
Great job with the presentation. One question for you is, say you were fortunate enough to find one of these businesses, what do you think what might be like the greatest challenge for you kind of operating the business once you had the opportunity to lead it?
Okay, so for a business like this, often the most important thing is like keeping your contracts going, because how these businesses work is they make contracts with either hospitals or smaller organizations to basically calibrate them once every 12 to 24 months with like certain emergency clauses taken into place. Probably the hardest thing besides keeping said contracts, because often you might have a larger organization trying to give a lower price, is most likely just going to be keeping your technicians on set accreditation, because you constantly need these updated, since medicine's really important and one screw up can lead to massive liabilities and often shut down of one company or directly be absorbed by another one.
That's great. Thank you.
Sure. So I know this is probably not directly involved, but for when you have this risk of there could be an error, right? Do any of these companies, is it a high paid, is insurance a high cost when you get into these, or have you seen errors? I mean, you know, in your study of researching, and the calibration is not there, and then they're liable, or is that not a thing?
Honestly, these calibration issues don't really happen that often. Like, if it does happen, it often leads to like a major like change. Often, if this happens, it's at like a much smaller institution. Like, for example, I come from New Jersey, so I know like Atlantic Medical Group, and then they have their own like different offices. And if it happens at one office, that one gets closed on, but everyone else is fine because it's like limited to that one specific office. So it doesn't happen that often, because often doctors and technicians at these specific businesses are also double check it just to make sure. It's not just the calibration service just doing a calibration one and done.
Thank you.
In looking at the players in the market, what have you examined to see whether the original equipment manufacturers have their own division of tech or anything, as opposed to just standalone companies?
That's ultimately a supply chain issue, because if you want these big companies just to send out their own technicians, they often have to send it from the main headquarters. And to do this all around the world, I'm just going to say all around the world because that's the easiest way to explain it. You would need to send a technician team from, let's say they're in Newark, and they need to fly out to, let's say, India or China. That takes huge amounts of time you don't have if you need to do a calibration quickly, because these calibrations don't take that long, but they need to happen fast, because if you disrupt for even 15, 20 minutes, a person could die on the operating table, or maybe an MRI scan doesn't come in and you don't discover something. So ultimately, it leaves it up to regional companies to be able to handle this instead of the larger companies such as Fluke having their own teams. The cost is just simply too high. The accreditation requirements also make it so that if they try doing their own business like this, the cost would significantly outweigh the benefits. Hospitals may have their own systems too, but they need to be large enough in order to pay these upfront costs of accreditation and having the equipment on hand.
Let's give a round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Round of applause.
Good job.
Awesome job.
Our next team, Beta Breakers. Let's give them a round of applause.
I keep buying so many books. They don't fit in this small apartment anymore.
Well, Diego, have you perhaps thought of renting out a storage unit?
Maybe I should.
Hello, everyone. We are the Beta Breakers. My name is Audrey.
I'm Diego.
I'm Quinn.
And I'm Ryan.
And today we are going to show you why the storage industry is quite the attractive venture.
Right, thank you, Audrey. Let's first take a look at the U.S. market, currently valued at about $45 billion and growing at 5% compound annual rate, which is about $58 billion by 2030. Right, as of 2024, about 10% households use the storage, but that number is also projected to rise to 16% by 2030. Well, what makes this market so attractive lies in its strong revenue and profitability, which average rent of only about $85 per unit and 85% occupancy and month-to-month lease. The revenue base is recurring and resilient, and all that's factored into the high net profit margin of 30 to 40%. Right, what's driving all this growth? Well, we have three key demand factors at play. Number one is urbanization. Number two is commerce and growth of small businesses. And number three is lifestyle, like death, divorce, downsizing, and declaring. So from all these slides, you can see the key takeaway is clear. It's a prominent market. Well, let's pass on to Diego.
Thank you, Quinn. Now let me give you a quick rundown of the industry structure, starting with market share. So essentially, there's a 50-50 split between large private corporations and small mom-and-pop shops. Now, these mom-and-pop shops are our goal for entry based on the example of the biggest 5 companies that make up 30% of the market share, which are real estate funds. Now, these companies are constantly growing through merger and acquisition and third-party management. But there is some price transparency here we've got to take into account, prices being accessible online and comparable. But enough about market share. Let's go to pricing and facility. Now, once again, based on these real estate funds, largest companies in the industry, you could have about 3,000 storage facilities across the US, with each facility housing about 600 units. The pricing for these units is an estimate of about $17 per square feet yearly. But too many numbers could be overwhelming. I'll allow Ryan to further elaborate them.
Thank you, Diego. Well, one thing that is certainly apparent is that the longevity of the market is always there. Self-storage is simply one of those things that's always in demand. It doesn't really matter if the economy is going up, down, sideways, or even in circles. It always does pretty well for itself. As we could see, even in the 2008 financial crisis, the market actually grew by approximately 5%. One of the reasons for this is the very low operating costs. These firms are practically only paying for rent, electricity, and insurance expenses, and that leads to the really high margins that Quinn was talking about before. Even if these companies are going through a bit of a rough patch, they can use dynamic pricing. Since they use month-to-month leasing, they can kind of increase prices to balance out lower occupancy rates for a long period of time. And another amazing thing to add is that these companies have very high tenant loyalty retention. When you're storing something, it's usually a larger item, for example, furniture. It takes a lot of time, energy, and money to move that out, so that's why tenants are usually staying for good for years. Now, I'd like to pass it on to Audrey, and she's going to talk about the attractiveness.
Thank you, Ryan. So building off of Ryan's point about longevity, there are also many factors that make this industry very attractive. So first of all, starting with a low threat of substitutes, as Diego has demonstrated in the beginning of our presentation, home storage offers very limited space, and sensitive items can be more securely kept in climate and temperature-controlled storage units. There's also very high accessibility within the market. So the combination of high brand loyalty and low capital requirements is uniquely beneficial to the storage industry because it's kind of like a gift that keeps on giving. Once you're in the industry, you're pretty much set. There's also a very high advantage over renters and suppliers alike. So what this means is that storage companies have more power over their profit potential because they can better negotiate terms of pricing with their customers, as well as quality of service with the maintenance and construction companies that supply the industry. Lastly, there's also very minimal industry rivalry. So the constant expansion of the storage industry has resulted in multiple differentiation factors that have ultimately dispersed competition and made the industry more stable. So we can see why the industry is attractive. But why, Ryan? Why the storage industry?
I'll tell you right now, as we know, storage is always in demand, and the low operating costs lead to very high margins. And another major benefit is that these firms are very much receivable-backed businesses, so that means liquidity is very rarely an issue for them. And finally, as we know, ETA, it's not just about acquiring a business, but also investing in it. And in these firms, there's so much room for renovation and efficiency improvements, and that really is what makes the self-storage industry such an exciting venture to pursue. We'd like to thank the audience and judges for your time, and now we'd like to open it up to questions. Thank you very much.
Great presentation. Thank you so much. One question for you is if you're thinking about like the first facility that you were to acquire, is there any like ideal profiles of like a particular size or geography or current occupancy, like any kind of criteria you think that would make like the ideal first acquisition for you, but perhaps?
So I could give an example on that. The other day I went out for a run downtown and I noticed this abandoned building, downtown storage. And you know, it's there, it's perfect real estate. It's sitting downtown, but it looked abandoned. So I feel like going for these small businesses that are essentially run down and people are just holding them on and paying mortgage and taxes on them, even though they're not running them. I feel like it would be a great thing to take off their hands, and we could go ahead and optimize this business, adding in new technology so it could actually go up and start running.
So is there a model that you have that shows you like the best scenario of where one of these should be? Obviously, it's great to rehab, but if you rehab, what around it, or what, keystone, what do you need to see in that neighborhood for you to think you're going to be successful?
Well, I would like to answer that question. So I think a lot of us maybe could relate that we have a bunch of clutter. Maybe you see a garage on the street of a suburbs. Sometimes garages, they don't just store cars, they store a bunch of stuff. And at the end of the day, you're gonna need a place to store those things. So we're definitely mostly looking at suburban places, but also as we saw in the beginning in our first slide, Diego's apartment was very small. Look, unfortunately, we know rent, it's so high. That apartment, like $5K a month for that, right? It's ridiculous. And if you have that many books, if you have a bookshelf, you can't fit it there. You're gonna have to move it into a storage unit. So we're definitely gonna target areas where you have suburban homes where they store a lot of stuff in their garages, and also areas probably in urban places like the city where they have little apartments and they simply just can't fit all their stuff there.
Yeah. So like get on real quick, that facility downtown.
Yeah. All you need is space. It's just space.
All right. Thank you all very much.
Good job.
All right, how about a round of applause for all three teams? So the next step in this process is we all have to vote. So as the judges finalize their voting and criteria, would ask each of you as audience members to vote if you so choose. On page 29 of your workbook, there is a QR code that you can scan. You can also scan this here, and it will take you to the Mentimeter. So please just vote for your favorite team. And we'll give you all a few moments to do that. We'll tally up the judges' scores and announce the teams. Thank you again. All right, the votes are in. Drum roll. Wait, actually, sorry. We're going to introduce, again, partner at Buckingham, Michael Ellis, to introduce or to announce the winners. You can do the drum roll again.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you, Jack. Okay. First, I want to thank all of the teams who competed today, and I want to thank all of the teams that competed throughout the process. I also want to thank the coaches of the team. I know it was a lot of hard work. All of them did a very good job, and I want to thank everyone for their thing. It was a close competition. Hold on a second. Screen faded, but I got it. Technology is not. As I said, it was a very close competition. So I will announce in third place was Rolling Spartans. And I want to thank them for their excellent competition. They were slightly beat out by the second place team Axia. And I am glad that I didn't pull one of those Academy Award mistakes and got it right here time. Beta Breakers is the winner. Congratulations.
All right, so at this time we have a few housekeeping items here, but we're going to ultimately get to pictures with the dean, who is here. Thank you, Dean, for being here. With the big checks. But before we get to that, just want to again thank Kevin and Joyce Shaw for coaching these teams. I think you believed me when I told you, but now you see it. So we're starting a tradition with the pitch teams and their gift to Kevin and Joyce. So the teams have signed this picture. So we're going to put a picture in there of all the teams, and they've all signed it for you guys. So yeah.
Thank you. You guys did great.
And then lastly, I just want to ask all the members of the ETA club and the club leadership to stand up. I just want to recognize you guys before we conclude. And with that, thank you everyone for coming out. We're going to get into pictures with the big check. So these are always so fun. So I'll have the dean, Jackie, Scott, Kevin, and Joyce come on up. We'll do the formal presentation and pictures. And we'll start with, let's start with Beta Breakers.
But for once, I actually get to hand them out. This is great.